let's review some information about linear equations. So this was a big topic in grade 9, and there's just a few things that I need to remember about it as we move into grade 10. So yesterday we had taken a look at linear relations with the equation form, and that equation form was more like y equals mx plus b. And we know that linear equations are not always expressed in this form, but can often be rearranged to it. So we're not always given this lovely form, which is too bad, right? Because we know that m represents our slope and b represents our y-intercept. So we can always get lots of information if it's in this form, but sometimes it's not given it to us that way. So for example, here's two equations, and we're asked to figure out which line is steeper, but it's really hard to determine because it's not written in this lovely y equals mx plus b form. So that's going to actually be our first step. We want to rearrange this so it is in that form and so that we have that information. So I want to isolate this y, this 2y to start with, and so I need to get rid of this 3x. So we can do the opposite operation in order to move things around. So since it's a positive 3x on this side, I can subtract 3x from each side. So 3x minus 3x eliminates, leaving me with just 2y. And then over here, I have this negative 3x minus 12. And then again, I'm looking for y equals, not 2y equals. So I'm going to divide everything, and I mean everything, by 2. And what I end up with is y equals negative 3 over 2x. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Okay. Same thing over here. I want this y to be all by itself. Notice I have all 3 terms on this one side. So I'm actually going to be kind of smart about this. And instead of moving the 2x over here and the 8 over there, and doing 2 moves, I'm only going to do 1 move. I'm just going to move my 8y. So I'm going to do the opposite operation. So plus 8y. Plus 8y. Leaves me with 2x plus 8 on my left-hand side. And an 8y on my right-hand side. And that's okay. Like, even if it's written, you might think this says backwards, it's really the same thing. So I'm going to divide by 8, which means I need to divide everything by 8. And I get 1/4 x plus 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 8 divided by 8 is 1, which is just y. Okay, and I can examine my slopes now. So in this case, my slope was negative 3 over 2, which is negative 1.5, and over here my slope, is 1/4. Right there, it's 1/4, which is equal to 0.25. Now, when it comes to figuring out which slope is steepest, which is what we want, the steepest slope, it's always the larger number. And the nice thing is that positive or negative don't matter. Positive means that my line is going up. Negative just means my line is going down. So those numbers don't actually represent anything with slope. They represent direction. Okay, so positive represents it's going up. Negative represents it's going down. So I'm just going to look at the actual number. So 1.5 and 0.25. Which number is bigger, 1.5 or 0.25? And you should say 1.5 is bigger, so that's the greater than sign, than 0.25. And so determine which equation below is steepest. So A is steepest. So very important for us to figure out slope. We need it in this form, y equals mx plus b. And so sometimes you might have to do a little bit of rearranging in order for that to happen. Okay, so when we talk about linear relations, we need to take a look at slopes. Here's some general rules. So if your lines with positive slope will, we can say will increase or go up. And maybe I'll even draw like an example here, like something like that. Lines with negative slope, they decrease or go down. And if I drew an example, it could look like this. A larger slope means steeper line. Okay, the larger the number means the steeper the line. But remember, positive or negative don't matter. It's just the actual number. Parallel lines have the same slope, exact same slope, like exact same, both negative, both positive, same number, everything. So exactly the same slopes. And perpendicular lines have what we call a negative, oops, that's a little hard to read, negative reciprocal slopes. In other words, they're opposite sign. So one's positive, one's negative. Opposite sign and flipped. That's what the reciprocal part means. Okay? So opposite sign and flipped. All right. So now that we know a whole bunch about slopes, let's continue on. We have two very special lines. We have horizontal lines. So horizontal lines would be a line that looks like this. And if you think about these have slopes where they are zero. They are flat. Okay, flat, flat, flat. There's no slope. There's no increase or decrease to this line. It's just a flat line. And these flat lines are written as y equals, let me call this, let's say A. So that's where A would be right there on your y-axis. So wherever it cuts through on your y-axis, that would be your equation of the line. Vertical lines. So vertical lines, of course, go straight up and down. So if we think about those slopes are like the largest number possible, the absolute largest number possible. And of course, we don't know what the largest number possible is, so we say it's undefined. So there is no actual slope that we can say that is. So let's say this is point B right here. Since it's cutting through our x-axis, this equation is written as x equals, and then wherever that point B is on your grid. That's exactly what it's equal to. So these are very special equations. The horizontal one because it has no slope, and then the vertical line because it has an undefined slope. Okay. All right, so we're going to do a few examples. We want to find the equation of a line. So remember, equations of lines, they're lines, so they're going to be written y equals mx plus b. We need to know two things. We need to know our slope, and we need to know our y-intercept. Okay, so those are going to be always two very important things. So if we read this question, it tells us that it's parallel to this line. So parallel, remember from our previous line, means it has the exact same slope as this equation. So if I examine this equation very carefully, I can see that it has a slope of -3. Awesome. So that means I've already found one part to my equation. The next part I need to figure out is this y-intercept. So they tell me that my new line crosses through the point 2, -10. Well, any coordinate point that's given to you, this is an x value, this is a y value. So if I plug all that information, so m, this -3 can go into this m right here, and this 2 can go into where my x is here, and then this y can go into where my y is here, then the only thing I would have left is b, and then I could solve for that y-intercept, because remember, that's the other piece of information that we need. So -10, I'm replacing my y with -10, equals m, which is -3, x, which is 2, plus b. All right, well, -3 times 2 is -6. And I'm trying to get b all by itself, so I need to do the opposite operation. So I'm going to add 6 to either side. Negative 10 plus 6 is going to be negative 4. And there I have my b value. So look here, I have my m value right here, and I have my b value right here. So my last step is to write my actual equation using my m, negative 3x, and then my b value, negative 4. So there's my equation of the line. All right, let's take a look at another example. Oh, in this, they just gave me 2 points. Oh dear. Okay, so 2 points, and I know that I need to find my m, and I need to find my b. So let's start with m. We can find our slope using our slope formula in order to figure out our rise over our run. So our slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so if you're kind of thinking about all these x1s and x2s and stuff, if we go to our first point, this is an x, this is a y, and because it's our first point, I would put 1s by there. And then this is our second point. Again, it's an x and a y, but because it's my second point, I'm going to put 2s by there. And so it's just a matter of plugging in the numbers into the appropriate places in our formula. So start with y2, so that's a negative 8, minus y1, y1 is a negative 5. And then x2 is a 3, minus x1, which is a 4. Okay, so negative 8 minus 5, so that's plus 5. So negative, this makes the plus. Negative 8 plus 5 is negative 3. And 3 minus 4 is negative 1. And when you have a double negative, it means positive. So I have a slope of 3. Awesome. So that's great. We have our first little piece of information. Now I want my second piece, which is b, but to do that, I'm going to have to use one of my points. So you have choice here. You can either use your first point or your second point. I'm going to use my first, not for any reason in particular, but just maybe, I don't know, because it came first. So this is my m, this is my x, this is my y, and I'm going to put all that information into y equals mx plus b. So y is going to be negative 5, m is going to be 3, x is going to be 4 plus b. 3 times 4 is 12. And then I'm going to subtract 12 from each side in order to get b all by itself. And negative 5 minus 12 is negative 17. All right. So now I'm going to write my equation with my slope, that is 3. So 3x, and then minus 17. Awesome. Okay, if you don't have your slope formula written down somewhere, you should really make sure that you do that. We're going to use it quite a bit in this chapter. Lots of slope. Okay, state the equation of a line that's perpendicular to this line and has the same y-intercept as this line. Whew, baby. Okay, this isn't as bad as it looks. So perpendicular, remember, means negative reciprocal. The slopes are negative reciprocal. So I need to figure out my slope of this line. Okay, so to figure out your slope, remember it has to be in y equals mx plus b form. So I'm going to actually take this negative y and I'm going to add y to each side, leaving me with 4x plus 7 equals y. All right, and now I really like this because now I have y all by itself. There's no number in front of it, which means that this 4 has to be the slope of that equation. All right, now what is my perpendicular slope? So just in case you didn't know, this upside down t means perpendicular. It's just that that word is so long to write. So we just abbreviate it with this symbol, upside down capital T, means perpendicular. Okay, so remember it was negative reciprocals. So if this is positive, then my perpendicular slope must be negative. And even though this isn't a fraction, we can say it's over 1. And so if I flip that, it becomes 1 over 4. So my perpendicular slope must be negative 1/4. All right, and it has the same y-intercept as this equation. So y-intercepts, remember, if I want to find a y-intercept, I let x be equal to 0. That's an x. All right, so I'm going to go through this equation, and wherever there is an x, I'm going to put a 0. So I get negative 2 times 0 plus 5y minus 8 equals 0. Well, negative 2 times 0 is just 0. So I get 5y minus 8 equals 0. I'm going to add 8 to each side, and I get 5y equals 8. Divide by 5, divide by 5. So my y-intercept is 8/5. I know, strange number. But another abbreviation for y-intercept, of course, is our b in y equals mx plus b. Remember, that's our y-intercept. So we now have enough information to actually write our equation. Y equals my perpendicular slope, negative 1/4 x, plus b, my y-intercept, which is 8/5. Perfect. Okay. Well, this brings us to the end of finding equations. Remember, whenever you're looking for solving an equation or finding an equation, you need to know two pieces of information. You need to know your slope and you need to know your y-intercept. And then once you have those two pieces of information, then you have your equation. Again, if you ever have any questions or problems, feel free to reach out and I'll be glad to help you.